work so you can play. MiniWarGaming's The Fate of Fayoom.
Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and it's time for another story time for the Tyranid Necron campaign, The Fate of Fayoum. Now, if you are new to this campaign, I strongly suggest that you go back and watch the previous series or the shows, the previous story times and the missions, because this is a story-driven campaign, and so it won't quite make sense just to jump in at this point. It's not a competitive campaign, it's all about the story. And there will be spoilers. I will tell you what happened previously in just a moment. So you've been warned. So where we last left off in missions 4A and 4B, the Tyranids had found an entrance to the Tomb World that they, like a really good entrance that they would be able to send in large forces into. And so they wanted to start to invade there. So Grand Overlord Sobek brought out his Destroyer Lord and some elites, the Praetorian Guard, to try to defend against the Tyranids. And they actually did a really good job. They destroyed a lot of Tyranids, especially the Destroyer Lord and his Praetorian. They just were tearing through the Tyranid Prime. The Tyranid Prime was taken down along with his big retinue of warriors. It's just, even the Hive Tyrant went down eventually. He was flying in, he killed tons of guys, but eventually fell to the firepower of some Necron warriors. But in the end, Grand Overlord Sobek fled the battlefield. And even though they were actually kind of winning the battle, he decided to take off. So Sobek the Coward proved himself again as to what his true nature was. So the Tyranids ended up winning and pushing through into it, although they did take significant losses while they fought to get in there. In the second mission that was in the vault, the Grand Overlord Sobek was reconvening with his royal court. And he actually found, while he was in his tomb world, the Overlord Knum, the guy who had gone into the Tyranid hive ship and managed to kill one of the Synapse hive ships. He was wandering the corridors and going kind of mad. And so he was debriefing him. He was trying to find out what happened. And while they were doing that, all of a sudden they get attacked by a Tyranid force, but not by this large Tyranid force, but by a very specially made Tyranid force. It was an assassination force led by none other than the resurrected Broodlord and the resurrected Death Leaper. And these guys came in and started slaughtering his guard. Sobek called for his elite Lich Guard to come in, and they did come barreling in and started chopping through Genestealers, but then they eventually fell. And it actually came down to Overlord Sobek was getting away, and so was Knum. And then Knum turned to Overlord Sobek, and Sobek's like, "Come and help me." And then Knum, seeing a bit of an opportunity, took the Tesseract Labyrinth that he had used to capture the Harrowspecks on the hive ship and opened it up and tossed it at Grand Overlord Sobek. And so the last thing that Sobek saw was Knum running away as a Harrowspecks charged towards him, a Broodlord charged towards him on another side, and the Death Leaper charged him on the other side. And he got torn to pieces, and his reanimation chambers were destroyed. And thus was the end of Grand Overlord Sobek. That's right, the main character in the Necron Tomb World is dead. Now, being a Necron, of course, there's always a chance he can be resurrected, but not when his reanimation chambers have been destroyed. And so there was no witnesses to Knum's treachery. So he came out and sadly announced the death of Grand Overlord Sobek, and then said that he would be taking over the Tomb World, which most of the Necrons agreed with. But there was still a small minority who were loyal to Sobek and wanted to actually go back in and try to reclaim his reanimation chambers and drive the Tyranids out, find the pieces of his body, and reanimate him so he could lead them again. And these became the Loyalists. And so amidst this Tyranid invasion, we have a Necron civil war, which is just shows the ridiculousness of their mechanical brains, that they would actually think to fight a civil war in the middle of an entire Hive Fleet invasion on their planet. And so this stretches Knum's resources a little far, because all of a sudden he's got to fight a Tyranid battle that he's actually losing at this point. The Hive ships that have survived are reinforcing the Tyranids faster than the Necrons can kill them. And they've managed to consume enough of the biomass that they're able to keep reproducing a lot of the fallen warriors. There's even rumors that the Hive Tyrant and the Tyranid Prime have been rebirthed and are ravaging the fields once again. And on the same time, he's got these Loyalists who are, as much as they normally would be easy to destroy, because his forces are stretched thin, they're actually becoming a bit of a pain. And so he realizes that he's got to make some desperate gambits in order to be able to win both wars. And so he does two things. There's two very important objectives, and that's going to be the two missions that we are going to play today. The very first one is a very desperate gamble that he's about to do, and that is there are Catan who are trapped in this tomb world. And normally the Necrons will not bring out the Catan unless they're totally desperate, or in Knum's case, maybe a little insane. And so he actually goes in, he starts to reactivate one of the Catan, but the Loyalists don't want this. And so even though they don't realize he's already started the reactivation process, they come in as well. And so there's going to be a fight over this Catan. And the second mission, the Knum realizes that he needs to retake his shipyards, which the Loyalists have actually managed to hold. That's one of the contingent that the Loyalists actually controlled the shipyards. Because if he can retake the shipyards, then he can launch his fleet now that they've been fully reactivated. Because as more and more of the Tyranids have been coming in, more of the world has been reactivated, and the shipyards are finally ready, but he can't launch them because the Loyalists are in control of them. So he can take back the shipyards, he can launch his fleet, and possibly take down the Tyranid High Fleet and stop the reinforcements. And then he just has to deal with the millions of life forms that have invaded the planet. So those are going to be the two missions for today. The first one that we're going to do that will be on YouTube for free is going to be the battle for the Catan. And the second one, which will be in the vault, is going to be the battle for the shipyards. And there's going to be some serious consequences to this. First off, Steve gets to choose which of these battles is most important to him. Because in both cases, the Loyalist Necrons will have 2,500 points. And in his case, he only gets 2,000 points for each of them. But in one of them, he can bring Knum and an extra 1,000 points of guys. So he'll have 3,000 points against 2,500 in one of them. And then the Loyalists will have 2,500 against his 2,000. He decided that it was more important to secure the Catan. So the very first one that you're going to see will be Knum's 3,000 points against the Loyalist 2,500 points. And we'll go into the scenario rules in the actual battle report. And then the one that'll be in the vault will be Knum's 2,000 points against the Loyalist 2,500 points for the shipyards. If he wins the mission for the Catan, then he gets control of the Catan in the final mission 6A and 6B, which will be Apocalypse Games. If he fails that one, the Catan, unbeknownst to the Loyalist, is still going to be unleashed, but will not be in control of Knum. In the second mission, if he succeeds in the battle for the shipyard, he'll be able to launch his Necron fleet and possibly destroy the Tyranid hive ships, really stemming off the reinforcements for the planet, for the Apocalypse Games. If he loses that, the Tyranids will have 2,000 extra points of reinforcements in the final Apocalypse Game. So, without further ado, go ahead and click on the links below to go to those missions. And of course, like I said, the first one's free and the second one's in the vault. If you're not a vault member, you can just click on it and you can take the 7-day trial and get instant access to it today and all the previous ones that you may have missed already, and all the future ones as well. It helps support us and allows us to do things like this. And as always, go ahead and click the links, and happy wargaming. And this Catan in the middle, he started to be reactivated, so he's trying to break free from his prison. And while he tries to break free, I guess because he's a transcendent Catan, so he's got like a lot of shards. Or maybe he's like part of a Catan now, so how would you say a part of it?